It's very good to have you on the podcast. Yeah. So
Yeah,
we'll
thanks.
we'll
Pleasure to be
start
here.
with you like what you do day to day life and what your profession is and everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, well, I'm a web developer. I've been a web developer my entire career. I start my day, usually just have breakfast and log into work. I mostly work on React. I've started playing around with Java, which is a first for me since the past 1 year. Most of my experience is Node, Express, React,
Mm.
since the past 3 years.
Yeah.
Basically since I came to Canada. Before that, when I was in Bangalore, I was mostly working on jQuery and basic HTML, CSS.
I see. So how long have you been doing this for, web development and
Let's see, 4.5 years in India
yeah.
and 3 years over here in
Okay.
Canada.
Okay. So you will say roughly around seven plus years.
Yes.
Right. Okay, I see. And your stack you said is like, so can we call it like MERN stack? You have not
Uh,
included the DB, but
Yeah, I wouldn't call myself that because I'm basically working a lot on Java these days. So I think my stack is kind of in a state of flux right now. It's not one particular stack per se. I'm one of those guys who's like, okay, throw me what you have and I'll try to figure it out.
nice. So what do you do exactly with Java? I know it's more. I've never written code in Java, but
What do we do with Java? Basically, there's an active effort right now to move away from Express
oh,
for
okay.
some reason at work. So we're basically working on Java,
Okay, I see.
um,
So is
making
there a
that
reason
transition.
why you guys are moving away from Express?
To be honest, I'm not sure.
Oh, okay, I see.
Um,
Okay, cool. So you mentioned that you've been developer in India for like 4+ years,
yes.
and then you moved to Canada. What do you say is like difference between the worker culture in like two countries?
So the work culture between the two countries, I'd say, in India, you kind of have it's a lot more casual within the team. Like
Mm,
it's it, it. I'm not saying it's like that everywhere. I'm saying that that has been my experience where people have been very um, people have been more open, whereas in Canada it's a little more work
mm,
focused, which is I'd say it's kind of a good thing and a bad thing. You don't really get to know your teammates to the same degree,
yeah.
but you also um, you also tend to have a better focus when you're at work because you're not like, I don't know, going out for a smoke break with your colleagues every 1 hour or something like that.
Yeah, I see. Yeah,
So I think
I
the work culture in India is it's quite different. Yeah.
mm, yeah, I think I agree with you. I don't have experience working in India, but like in Canada, when you're working in a team, you're there to work, but outside work, you hardly talk to
Right.
your team members. Whereas I'm assuming, or other people I talk to who have some experience in India, they say they like hang out with their coworkers after work too. So teams are a lot more friendlier than as compared to Canada or abroad.
Yeah.
Is there a specific reason why you picked Canada over like something like US where there's Silicon Valley, you get paid a lot more as a programmer?
So one thing was I wasn't really looking for the size of the paycheck,
Hmm.
and since I worked for a while, I always had my peers like from my engineering college days, who went to the US right after their engineering, did
Yeah.
their MS, did that fairly typical route, and I realized that there's no way that I can actually like get a green card and get my citizenship ultimately. It
Yeah.
might happen through some stroke of luck,
Yeah.
but it's not as easy as what it is in Canada. So I just felt like those returns, like getting my PR card, getting my citizenship, those benefits far outweigh a fatter paycheck.
Hmm.
So I mean, like, it's just a matter of time now before I get my Canadian passport. So
Yeah.
now I'm free to go to the US if I want to.
Yeah.
I can always go to the US now. That
Oh, okay. I see.
would not
So,
have if I'd gone to the US directly, I would not have been able to do that.
okay.
Not that I'm planning to go to the US anytime, but I do have that option available to me now.
Okay, I see. So, do you think it is a fair assumption that people come to like if you have to if someone has to choose between US and Canada, they prefer
Right.
Canada because of the immigration system is way easier than as compared to US, right?
I wouldn't say way easier. I would say it's actually possible to become a citizen, whereas in the US it's next to impossible, right?
Okay, but let's say
So
if the US immigration is same as Canada, will you still choose Canada or no?
I think I'd probably choose Canada for a different reason. I believe that, things like universal healthcare are very important. The gun laws over here are much better, so there's a greater degree of safety. So there are like a lot of these other secondary things which would make it more appealing for
Got
sure.
it. Okay, awesome. Okay, let's begin. Let's go backwards and start like how you got started in coding and what motivated you to come in like IT field.
Honestly, I just kind of fell into it. Uh, I did my bachelor's in uh, information science, so the next thing really for anyone who's done that is okay, fine, all right, yeah, I become a software developer because that's what I've studied. So it was like a fairly straightforward thing to have happened.
Hmm.
Like there was no, I was doing something else, but then I realized that, hey, coding is like a great opportunity. Yeah, I picked it when I was 18 years old and I just stayed the course.
I see. I see. So, as you might have also seen, like being a programmer, especially a web developer,
Right.
like I feel like backend technologies are fairly like stagnant, whereas like front end development, there's like new framework, new libraries coming out every other week or whatever. How do you keep up with that if you
Well,
do?
honestly, like if you Google the phrase JavaScript fatigue, uh, it can happen where you have something new coming up every single day and you feel like you need to be on top of it. That is not true. Uh, there's no need to fall into that thing where it's like, oh, there's a brand new flashy framework. Let me adopt it right away. Let me get on top of that. That's not necessarily how it works. What is important is to study the market conditions
Yeah.
and realize what it is that employers, where you want to work. I mean, in a geographical sense, what are they looking for? What are they, uh, what what kind of growth do you have if you adopt a specific technology? Like it's you kind of have to be practical in those terms. You don't just look at the new shiny thing on GitHub, which seems to be like rising, and oh, I have to learn this framework. That's not how it works. Coming to the other part of the question about backend technologies being fairly stagnant, I don't think so. It's not adopting at a, it's not evolving at a as fast a rate as what you see with JavaScript front-end frameworks. But I think there's a fairly high degree of churn. Like, say a few years ago, nobody used to talk about Golang, but now employers are looking for Golang, and that is specifically designed for the backend.
Yeah.
You see newer versions of Java coming out. You see newer versions of .NET coming out, and if you look at the syntactical improvements that they've made, they are fairly they're fairly mature. You kind of uh, once you start working on them, you see that they are basically evolving in a fairly nice manner.
Hmm. I see. So yeah, I agree with you. I think a lot of people who wants to get started in the field, like let's say someone wants to become a web developer, they get
Right.
overwhelmed by amount of stuff they'll have to learn. But I ask a lot of people like who wants to get in the field is to just focus on the basics. Like if we
Yes.
narrow it down, what do we need to build a website? HTML, CSS, and JavaScript.
Right.
That's all you need, right? And then all
Yes.
the other tools you have npm, and then you have GitHub. All those tools, they
Yes.
complement those three skills, right?
Yeah.
So I think anyone who wants to get started in this should just be focusing on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript initially. Because,
Yes.
for example, like React is built using JavaScript. So if you don't
Yes.
understand JavaScript inside out, how it works and everything, and the advanced concepts in it, how will
Correct.
you
Yes.
understand React, right? So
Absolutely. Yeah.
that's like how I think about
Yeah. I
all
think
this.
I think I 100% agree, because once you have your fundamentals in place, you can adapt, sorry, to any um, framework. You might have a ramp up time,
Hmm.
but uh, adapting to different frameworks, it gets much easier as long as your fundamentals are in place.
I see. Yeah, I agree. Completely agree with it. Can you give any tips for people who are like starting in the field? What their thought process should be coming into the field? What should they be focusing on? Any resources that you can point to where people can learn from?
Resources, I would probably not recommend like a particular resource. My approach would mostly be to look at a problem and try to solve it. Even if there's a solution implemented already, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Try to solve the problem on your own. Try to actually build something, because that gives you a talking point.
yeah,
Try to and you can always like incrementally improve it. The first time you have, let's say, the first time you're just building it out in HTML, CSS, and
yeah.
JavaScript. The next time, maybe rebuild it using jQuery and get some slightly better interaction. The
Hmm.
third time, use a slightly fancier framework,
Hmm.
like, I don't know, React, Vue, whatever the new kid on the block is
I
at that
see.
time.
So let me ask you this. So let's say if you have to start this journey of becoming a web developer all over again, what will
Yeah.
your approach be?
Um, what would my approach be if I had to start my journey of being a web developer all over again? I would perhaps try to, something which I mentioned a few minutes ago, I'd try to understand the market conditions. I think uh, different places have different market conditions, like say in Bangalore, because there's so much of work that's shipped in from all over the world. The market conditions are a lot more different than the ones in Waterloo, where
Hmm.
I live right now, where you don't have work coming in from, all over the world. It's the employers tend to uh, pick a certain set of technologies
Yeah.
and stick to those.
Hmm.
So I'd say perhaps identifying that thing is what I'd probably change.
I see. And how will you approach which technologies to learn and all that? Let's say someone
I
has finished researching everything and they know, okay, the job market is fairly strong wherever they are. What's next? Like, what do they have to learn and stuff?
oh well, I'd try to find forums. I'd say start off with like the subreddit for that particular technology. I'm pretty sure there are other people who've found themselves in those shoes before, and I'm pretty sure that whatever technology you pick, there will be a certain community behind it, and they would have compiled resources. So what what I'd recommend is to identify that community, where is it strong, and try to get resources out of that community.
Hmm. I see. Okay, cool. So let's move forward. And so I've seen a lot of like lately, ever since I started working for PayPal, and before that I was working for like a startup. Do you
Right.
prefer working for a startup or like a big MNC?
I would say that depends on what who you are and where you see yourself being. There are obviously other variables in your life. If you're looking for stability,
Yeah.
uh, I'd say obviously don't look at startups. If you're looking for a 9 to 5 job, I'd say don't look at startups. If you're looking for uh, something where, okay, I like, I'm fresh out of college, I don't really have any like family obligations, I'm not married or anything, then I'd say just jump into the deep end of the pool, learn as much as you can in a startup, because that will pay off much later. But if you're like at a different stage in your life, where let's say you're you need to like devote time to other things in your life, then I'm not sure. Maybe you can find startups which have a great work-life balance. Good for you.
I don't think there is any startup with great work-life balance.
Well, I don't know. It depends on the culture of the place. So if you can find something great, but like the reputation which startups have of being something which can really deny you your work-life balance is for a reason. So I'd say tread cautiously. So yeah, to answer your question in brief, it depends on other things in your life. It doesn't depend on just one thing.
I see. So
Like
like to summarize it, so it depends on like your risk tolerance and let's say where you are in life, plus the compensation as well. Like how much risk are you willing to take, and that depends on other factors as well, right? Are you married or are you single? So like single, when you're single, you have a lot more risk tolerance as compared to people who are married. And then I've also seen like startups usually, I shouldn't say usually, but most of the time they pay a lot more than MNCs. But at the same time,
squarely, I feel that depends on how much funding they have, how much money they have to burn.
Of course.
I've seen startups pay you next to nothing. I've seen startups pay you the moon. So that fairly depends on how much money they have in their wallets.
Yes, so I agree with it. But let's say a well-funded startup still will not have enough funds as compared to a huge MNCs. But if we compare the people who work in, let's say for example, Coinbase, right? Take an example of Coinbase. Coinbase is a well-funded company and all that.
Right.
But then at the same time, if we look at like some other big MNC, let's say HCL or whatever, right?
Got it.
A software developer working in Coinbase gets paid a lot more than a software developer working for HCL. Does that make sense?
It does. But you also have to look at if you're comparing a services company to a product company, that's like I think comparing apples and oranges because they're trying to solve completely different problems. A services company typically is solving problems on behalf of someone else, right? Whereas a product company is trying to solve a problem on its own.
Yeah.
So I think that when you're in a setup like a services company, you can move like, project X to Y to Z. It changes, and your work-life balance really depends on the project you're in. Like in one project, you might be fairly relaxed. In the next project, you might be on your toes.
I see. Yeah.
Like it changes from project to project, team to team, things like that.
Yeah, I think
in a services company, whereas in a product company, well funded and everything, you might have employers being like, okay, we need to adopt like if they're prioritizing like having a good culture, then they might tend to just like ensure that people do have good work-life balance. They might look at people who they might look at how to explain it. They might look at just ensuring that people have that. So I don't think you can like compare a services company and a product company.
Okay, sounds good. So moving forward, do you prefer working for a service-based company or a product-based company?
I don't think I can work for a services company. I prefer working for a product company. That's just my personal experience.
Can you share some of that experience?
So when I used to work in services company, I definitely had a few long nights. I usually have clients breathing down my neck to have something delivered. That's been my personal experience. I know that there are people who've had it differently, but I looked for a way out by joining a product company. And what I believed was pretty much true. Things got a lot more relaxed after that.
Yeah, man, I agree with that 100%. I was working for a services-based company where, like, I remember there was a time where they picked up a project that was due in like a week, and I had to sleep in the office for like 3 days straight.
Yeah.
So I slept in the
Yeah,
office, I'd wake up.
I remember something like that happening in one of the workplaces, which was a services company too. I remember one of my colleagues, he just came into office with like this huge suitcase, and I was like, I thought he was like going to the airport right after that or something. And he said no, he's like his project needs him to just camp out in office, so he basically got a suitcase to work so that he can take a shower and just live out of the office
That is
for the
crazy,
next few
man.
days. So yes, I've seen that happen, but I
Yeah.
don't think it happens in Canada as much.
No, bro. It happened to me
It's
in Canada. So my company that I was working for, I don't want to name them, but they took on a project that was due in like a week or so, and me along with a developer I was working with and my CTO of the company, we used to sleep in the office. We slept in the office for like 3 days straight. We wake up in the morning, go home, shower, come back to the office, work whole day. I remember my CTO one day waking me up at like 4 a.m. He's like, "Yo, wake up, let's start working again." Because I went to take on a nap, and then I slept for like 1-2 hours, and then he woke me up at like 4 a.m. in the morning to get things done. And then after 3 days we finished, and it was a React project. It was React in the
okay.
front end and WordPress in the back end as headless CMS.
Okay.
We had to build 3 different sites in 7 days. So that was crazy. And from that point on, I decided like I'm never gonna work with a services company. But then I started working for a services company again, HCL.
I
But
was
HCL
about to.
HCL is completely different from, let's say, the company I was working for before. HCL
Yeah.
delegates their developers to like other big companies. For example, I work for HCL, but then I don't interact with anyone from HCL. I work with PayPal day to day. I log into PayPal
Yeah.
account, I interact with people at PayPal. So I think that's HCL as a service company is completely different from the services company that typically just deals with clients directly and stuff, instead of like delegating developers to the clients forever. Like
Yeah.
for example, it's been a year since I've joined HCL, and I've never spoken to my manager once at HCL.
Okay.
Never. Like there's no one-on-one, there's nothing. So I only speak to people at like PayPal. So it's like I'm working for PayPal full time instead of HCL.
All right.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, like that basically goes to what I say about how it can, like, life and services companies can vary from project to project. I know it's a completely different employer altogether, but that can be how it is.
See, cool. Let's move forward. So what keeps you motivated as a web developer? Like I know,
As
like sometimes working when you're in your full-time job, you sometimes have to work on the projects that you are not super like into or very much interested in working, but you still have to do it because it's your job. And
right.
that point uh, you might start to not like programming a bit. So what are the ways that you find to make things interesting again? Like what motivates you to move forward?
I think, yeah, that's happened to me quite a bit. I think just reminding yourself that this is a temporary phase, and like this phase will pass, and the the sooner I actually get it over with, the sooner I'll actually start enjoying what I do. Because once I'm done with that problem, I'll actually feel like, I'm pretty sorted. I'm a pretty decent programmer, and you'll actually like start liking coding again.
Yeah, like you'd start doubting yourself, your choices, and everything. And then I
Exactly.
feel like
You
it's
you you do
important
that.
to take a break as well. Like when you feel exhausted, take a break. Don't code for like a day, 2 days, and then
Yeah.
once you come back, and then you'll feel refreshed, motivated again.
Yeah, I know. Like, I just spent like a few days ago. I was working pretty late and didn't get to the solution. And the next day, like, just I slept at like almost to 1 a.m. And the next day, I woke up, and within the first couple of hours, I got the solution. It was staring at me in the face.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think it's very important to take a break.
that happens to me all the time, man. Like I'm stuck at
Yeah.
a problem, I'm not able to find a solution, and then what I do, I just go to sleep. I'm like I sleep for an hour,
Yeah.
and I wake up and like I come back to my computer and I figure out the solution in like half an hour. This happens
Yeah,
all the time.
exactly.
Every
Yeah,
time this
yeah,
happens. It's
yeah.
crazy. Alrighty. Let me ask you this: how do you think building personal projects is important to progress as a developer? Let's say your company is fairly they've been using the old technologies for whatsoever reason, but you are interested in learning new stuff. So, what role does building personal projects play in that scenario?
I think in a scenario like that,
Yeah.
building personal projects is very important because you're trying to move away from what you're doing. Um, and you're also uh, kind of you don't really work with it on a day-to-day basis. You need to showcase something to the employers that, hey, what you're hiring me for, I can actually work on it, and you need to prove it.
Mm,
So yeah, like building a personal project in those circumstances is very good. Obviously, building something at work is something that carries a lot more weightage.
mm,
But let's say just because of your circumstances, you are not in a position to do that because yeah, like you're migrating to a completely different technology in your next job, then um, yeah, then I think personal projects are fairly important.
mm. Got it. Cool, man. I think this session's been crazy. A lot of good information. Thank you for
Yeah,
that.
yeah, my
Any last
pleasure.
few tips that you want to give to people who want to get in the field? Like, let's say 3 tips you can give for people.
Uh, okay, I know that we've had I remember having a similar discussion with you once before. Um, I think the first thing, like when you're in your first job, the most important thing is to find a mentor,
Mm,
someone who is willing to take you on. Maybe that's just the role that he's been given. Like okay, hey, there's this kid fresh out of college, probably knows very little, if at all, but he's interested. Just like he's going to need to be ramped up aggressively, or she's going to need to be
mm,
ramped up aggressively. Then I think that is perhaps the most most important thing.
mm.
Finding a mentor. Um, Secondly, I'd say uh, research the market.
Okay.
Um, don't don't like Google which jobs pay well in technology and then just go ahead and like learn a technology. Understand where you are and what the market in that area is what it needs, and make sure that you set realistic goals to actually get into the market.
Mm, I see.
um, and I'd say the third thing would be just be humble. um, Accept the fact that um, there are smarter people out there, people you can learn from. Uh, so don't be afraid to approach them. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to, um, yeah, like just accept the fact that you you need to grow. You need to grow. You need to mature in your tech stack, and it's going to take a while. So yeah, just be humble.
Cool. Awesome, man.
Yeah,
This was a great and very informative section,
yeah.
Nihal. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Alrighty, we'll end on
All right.
this note.
Cool. Yeah.
Alright, man. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.